So then, the January transfer window has come to an end and Cheltenham's business is done. We have made 4 signings, and about a week ago you would have said that this window was a bit iffy for us. We didn't quite get what we needed, but I think over the last few days we have really dug deep and produced 2 very good signings. I'm going to be talking all about these signings in this video. This video is pretty much just going to be me basing my opinions and voicing them. Feel free to comment down below your thoughts on these signings as well. It's always good to hear your guys' opinions. But we're going to be talking about any players that have had an impact so far, if we've seen them play. Of course, we've only seen one of them play so far. And what I think these new signings will bring to the table in what is going to be a competitive squad for the second half of the season. So enough of the waffle then, let's start off with young striker Will Goodwin. Of course, spent the first half of the season on loan at Torquay United. Of course, Gary Johnson's National League side on loan from Stoke City, who, of course, we did sign him on a permanent deal for. He's on a 2.5-year contract. And it's weird because, of course, his debut was against Salford City in the Papa John's Trophy. He did get a debut goal there. I think he had a fantastic impact. He did perform really, really well and obviously deserved his goal. And it was a great finish as well after a good pass in behind. And he was a key factor in why we won that game and got to the semi-finals of the Papa John's Trophy. Since then, it's been a bit tough because we've had 3 games that he's played in, and they've all been very cagey games. 2 of them against, top opposition in Derby County and Plymouth Argyle. Having said that, I think he dealt really well, but he didn't really get too many chances to prove himself. And then Port Vale, he was good when called upon. I think could have been a bit better on the ball, but of course, when you've had these first few games, which kind of throws you in at the deep end a bit, I do think it's a bit tough to make a judgment on a player at this early stage. But so far, with Will Goodwin, I think there's a good player there. He's a very good hold-up striker. He loves trying to get on the end of long balls, and I think that's the difference, is that when Luke Southwood pings the ball long, or one of our fullbacks pings the ball long, he's always trying to flick it on or get his head to it rather than ducking away, which we have had previously in this team this season. So far, so good from Will Goodwin, but will other striker options push him out of the team? Will he be in and out, or will he secure that spot as that hold-up play striker? Only time will tell. If I'm going to give this signing a rating, I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. So our next signing was young defender Elkin on loan from Ipswich Town, of course, fellow League One side. And unfortunately, we're yet to see Elkin play. So his debut would have been against Plymouth Argyle, but of course he was off ill that day, and then he didn't get any game time against Port Vale, which, to be perfectly honest, surprised me. I think I would have liked to see him start in that game just to try and, I guess, give him a bit of experience and suit him into, what playing in this team is like. I think holding him off for bigger games such as Accrington Stanley and Bolton coming up, if he does play in these, then I think it was a mistake not to give him any game time against Port Vale, but that's just my opinion on it. I think it's a fantastic signing. He's a tall player that loves getting forward, loves getting into the box. He is quite a similar player to the likes of Caleb Taylor. And I mentioned on the Robins Report podcast, which I do a bit of every week or so, and I did say over on there that I think because him and Caleb Taylor are of a similar age, and they're very similar players in that they're both tall, they're both good central defenders, and they like getting forward and getting their head on the ball, I think they'll push each other on. And if Elkin can break into this team and hopefully get a decent run of games, he could be a key factor in not only being a strong defender for us, but also enhancing Caleb Taylor even further. And I think he's been fantastic so far. But I really do think those two could push each other on. Elkin was very, very good for Gillingham. Faded off a bit towards the end, but was still a top player for them. I think he was their joint top goal scorer before he left, so that says a lot. He loves getting forward. And he's a solid man at the back as well. He's a reliable face. So even if he doesn't necessarily get straight into the team, which isn't to be expected, I just would have liked to see him get on off the bench against Port Vale. Hopefully, at some point we do see him play, and we do see him be given a bit of trust. But of course, even if he doesn't, he is a solid backup, and he's there to create more competition, which I think in that defence is needed after the injury of Lewis Freeston. So, it's tough to say because we haven't seen him play yet, but if I'm going to rank that signing, I'm also going to give it a 7 out of 10. Moving on to the third signing, and in my opinion the best, it is Aiden Keener from Sligo Rovers, the Irish Premier Division side. Of course, he was the Irish League's top goal scorer last season with 18 league goals. I believe he picked up 21 for them across the course of all competitions. There, he was a key man. He scored some brilliant goals. I mean, you look at the highlight reels on YouTube. That's all you need to know. He loves hitting them from distance. He loves getting power behind shots. He's going to take the net off at some point. Hopefully he can find the net for us, and that's all we really ask for. I think him and Alfie once again are going to push each other on. I think they're both similar players. Of course, he's 5'11", so probably won't be played as a hold-up striker, but you never know. That's why I say that, you know, will Goodwin be able to maintain a spot on the team, because this season so far we have simply played the role of a striker that runs in behind and then one that plays as a hold-up striker. Initially it was with Dan and Alfie, and now it's with Will and Alfie. Is the signing of Aiden potentially going to change our way of going up the pitch? I don't know. Only time will tell on that. It would be nice to see a bit of freshening up. I think changing the tactics in the middle of the season could be a bit of a iffy one, even if the tactics used so far haven't been so effective. So we'll have to wait and see on that situation. But he's certainly a player that is going to want to find the net. He's going to be fighting for that place in the starting 11, and I think he's perfectly capable of it because he's a fantastic player. It's tough to say because I don't know if it's a step up really, because I think if he was performing that well in the Irish League, I don't think you can say it's a step up. Admittedly, you know, the Irish League in comparison to English football, it's not the greatest, but it probably is somewhat of a similar level, maybe upper end of League 2, lower end of League 1. So if a player is scoring that many goals in this division, then clearly if they're coming into this team and we can use him to the best of his ability, then there's going to be goals in him, and it's going to be a case of how much is this signing going to pay off. It's going to pay off one way or the other, I think, whether it's goal contributions, whether it's assists or goals itself, or just pushing other strikers on for competition. Whether it's that or him just bagging 10 for the second half of the season, goodness knows. But I do think this is an absolutely brilliant signing, and it's fantastic to see that the club have got it over the line, because they clearly worked hard at it. Record fee for us. It's brilliant to see, and I do rate it highly from the club because they clearly have put a lot of effort in. And that does, I guess, summarise why the last week or two before that had been quite quiet when it came to transfers. So, ranking-wise for this signing, of course, I haven't seen him in a championship yet, so I can't give it a 10 out of 10. But I'm going to give it the closest possible 9 out of 10 for that signing of Aiden Keener. And finally, our last signing, our deadline day signing of midfielder, central defensive midfielder, Glenn Ray. Central defensive midfielder, can go forward, but I believe can also slot into centre-back if called upon. And you know what? There's positives and negatives, because he is currently injured, admittedly. I think he's only out for 2 more weeks, though, so we will have him back. He hasn't played in a fair while since, I think, the first half of 2022. He has been out injured for quite a while. Hopefully his match sharpness will be there sooner rather than later, but realistically it will take a few games to get him up to speed. He's a very experienced player. He's had a lot of appearances in the Championship. He's been a good player for Luton in his time there, and of course joins us on loan for the second half of this season. I think it's going to be a brilliant signing if we can get him up to speed. It's exactly what I've been crying out for the last few months, really. Since fairly early on in the season, I said we need more midfield defensive ability, not necessarily a central defensive midfielder or a holding midfielder specifically, but just a central midfielder that is going to have that defensive ability and not necessarily constantly thinking about trying to bring the ball forward. More sitting back, sitting off the ball, not necessarily inviting pressure, but just controlling the opposition with the way you play as a midfielder. That's all I asked for, and I think all we had before this signing was Elliot Bonds, who, no disrespect to the lad because he is a decent player on his day, but recently I do feel bad for him because you can tell his confidence is knocked, and hopefully he does get back to his full abilities. But I do think that this signing will really solidify that midfield. And no doubt if we can get him up to speed, he will be a really, really key figure for us and hopefully be the difference in keeping us up. But it's all about getting him up to full fitness. If I'm going to give it a ranking, it's tough again because he is injured currently. But if all things being well, and we can get him up to speed, and we can utilise his potential, this is a solid 8 out of 10. But if not, worst comes to worst, I still think he'll have a good impact when he does come into the squad. I'll give it a 7. So that is all 4 players covered. Get your player ratings in the comments as well, and let me know why you've given these signings those ratings. It's always good to hear other opinions. I wonder if I'm being a bit generous. I don't know, but I think with these last few days, we have made this window fairly positive, and we have bought in what we needed to bring in, plus a fantastic striker, which will have a huge impact on the attacking half going into the second half of this season. So that does pretty much cover it all for this video. Thank you all very much for watching. If you did enjoy, please do smash like and subscribe. That would be massively, massively appreciated. Let's try and get 2,000 subscribers by March. That would absolutely mean the world. Have a class rest of your day. God bless, and I'll see you in the next one.